Nice picture.
You got a little sneak peek there. Thank you. All right, welcome everyone. I am Jeremy Cherney. I'm from Tobin Solutions, and thank you for joining us today for the Information Technology Security Awareness Training. Let's see. That's me, for those of you that have never met me. We're going to be taking questions via chat, and Amanda has joined us from Tobin, and she's going to help moderate some of the chat and check in periodically. So you can definitely ask questions during the presentation and the training, and if there's anything I can answer right then, I will, or maybe we'll save it for the end if I think it's going to be addressed in an upcoming slide. This is about security awareness training. There's going to be a Q&A at the end, and afterwards there's going to be a brief survey and the presentation slides we're going to send you via email. We're also recording this. We had a little bit of a glitch last time with the audio, so hopefully we have the audio this time. So I'd encourage you to obviously make notes if you need to, but you're going to get all the slides. So my invitation for you would be just kind of be here in the conversation and see what you get out of this, because some of these slides are admittedly very dense with information. Okay, and I don't want you to miss something because you were trying to write down what's on the slide. All right. So when questions do come up, I'm going to often start off with "it depends," and I say that because there's just so many different security scenarios, and people have different needs and different places where security is going to be an issue. So you might hear me say that. There's not always like a simple, straight answer to some things. The goal for today, some of you may be here, right? You kind of have your head in the sand, either intentionally or unintentionally, around security, and we get that. If you've been to this presentation before, which is great to come and see this again, because we do update this. We're actually on version 9 of the presentation because there's always new security threats, new things to update. So you may have your head in the sand on a few things you don't even know that you don't know yet. As you go along, you might be a little panicked or scared. That's okay. Just be with it. Part of this sometimes what has people not get involved in security is that they're kind of scared of it. They don't know things. So you may kind of go through that space, but in the end, I think you'll have a plan out of here. You'll be pretty confident in what you know and have a place to start taking some action. So first of all, when we talk about security, we're talking about security incidents, and that is any breach in your CIA, which is a really helpful, easy to remember acronym or initialism. So the first thing is your confidentiality. So if there's a breach of your confidentiality, which means that someone got access to your systems or data that wasn't supposed to have access to it. That could be the outside hacker, that could be someone, one of your employees or one of your customers or a partner or somebody, but something was breached there. You had something that you or only certain people were supposed to know, and now someone else knows it. So that's a security incident. The integrity of your data. So this is any changes to the data that might be a security incident. You send out a proposal and it says, you're charging $10,000 for your services, and somewhere along the way, someone changes it such that they're saying it's $5,000 for your services. Or perhaps you're sending somebody some information on how to pay you, and someone intercepts your email and changes the payment terms or where payment is supposed to be made. That would be corruption. That would be an unauthorized change. And finally, availability of your systems. So sometimes availability looks like the hacker, the ransomware, the those kind of things. Sometimes it's availability, like your hardware died. You have a server or workstation or some system, and it's no longer working, and that is a security incident because you can no longer have access to your data until that's repaired. So anything in any breach in your CIA is what we consider a security incident. We'll see how this video works. I haven't done a video through GoToMeeting here, so we'll see how that goes. So, as a Simpsons fan, that always makes me chuckle. But I really love is that it really does go to serve this point, which is security is only as good as its weakest link. So Mr. Burns had high security in his office, and in the end, there was a back door that was broken down and easily entered by a dog. And a lot of times people have security systems like that. They put a lot of stuff in place, and there's something that they don't know about that's an issue. So here's another kind of real obvious representation of that, right? You've got this really strong chain, you've got it locked down, and in the end, there's a shoestring that's actually holding things together. So when we talk about that, those weak links, for many of you, you may know exactly what that is, right? So let's say someone's told you that your firewall is old and outdated, or that you need to have antivirus, and you know that stuff. That's great. There might be some things you don't know, like you need a firewall, but you don't know what it is or how to get it. And that's all fine because all of that is stuff you can actually deal with because it's something you know or something you don't know. But for many people, those weak links in security are those things that you don't know that you don't know. And if you think about it, it's kind of one of those unanswerable questions. What's something you don't know that you don't know? And you won't know because there's no way to get in there. So part of this is going through this education today, and you're going to move a whole lot of what you don't know that you don't know into that know or know you don't know category so you can actually take some actions around that. So part of this is just to get that security is getting more complex and more risky as we go along. So there's a geeky term called the CVE, or the Common Vulnerabilities and Exposures Database. And every time there's a new security hole discovered in Windows or Office or your Mac or Android or anything like that, when it's discovered, when it's known, it's given a CVE number. And so back in 1999, there were less than 1,000 CVEs in 1999. In 2018, there were over 16,000, and I updated this last week, and we were already over 500 for the month of January in 2019. So the main point is the trend is going up right now. Even when you look at where some of these little bit dips were in 2010, 2011, overall, things are moving up. So again, this just served to keep present that things are getting more security breaches every day. And another point to be made about is these are only the ones we know about. These are ones that are publicly disclosed. If there's a security hole that hasn't been publicly disclosed, not on here. Okay? So there's a lot of scary things that people think about when they think about security. Some of the things that have been in the news, like Meltdown Spectre. If you're watching the evening news and you see about hacks at Target and Home Depot and Marriott recently. I don't know if you caught that one in the news. Marriott was the subject of hacking, and it turns out that the hackers were in Marriott's network for, I think, close to 4 years or over 4 years. So for 4 years, people had the inside of Marriott's systems. So we do get those rogue employees and hackers and lost money, and you can kind of go through all that. I actually talked to one IT manager, and he was actually very concerned, legitimately for him, that he felt that his job was on the line. if there was a security incident and they got hit in a way such that they weren't recoverable, or the damage was such that he would lose his job, and he felt his wife was actually going to leave him. So for him, that's a real thing. For some of you, it may not. But the biggest scary thing for me is the last point. Hacking is a professional business. It's no longer relegated to just the guy in the basement who's got an axe to grind. It is crime syndicates. It is people that can easily get paid for their hacking, ransomware and things like that. So because there's money involved now and not just spite, there's a lot more of it going on. Here's an example. There is a website called Zerodium. They're paying for what are called zero-day exploits. A zero-day exploit is a security hole that is not publicly disclosed, that no one's aware of, and that they're the first ones that are actually able to use it, and they're paying $2 million, that is not a typo, $2 million if you can break an Apple iOS remote jailbreak. And it's gone up. It used to be $1,500,000. If any of you are Outlook users, they're paying $250,000 for a hack on Outlook that's going to let people get through with a malicious email. So now most individuals can't pay for that. So a lot of times these are going to be who? These are going to be nation states. United States, China, Korea, North Korea, South Korea, whoever wants to pay for these kinds of things, or some of the three-letter agencies and the other country equivalents of those, CIA, NSA, things like that. So there's big money in this. But some of the stuff is not that. It's a lot of money, but it's not necessarily those kinds of things. So this Ryuk ransomware that came out in the last 5 months, they earned $3.7 million in Bitcoin cryptocurrency. We had a client that got hit, and they were not protected, and they had to pay a $13,500 ransom. And fortunately, the ransomers were ethical in the sense that they actually paid or returned the data. We had another client that was protected. They had a $20,000, they got hit by ransomware. There was a $20,000 request, but we were able to, kind of give them a raspberry and kind of thing and say, hey, we're covered here. We don't have to pay anything. So it's real money here. So there are some facts we want you to kind of get. It's almost certain you're going to have or face these over time. It's just hard to be a computer user for any length of time and never have any breach in your CIA. And we think it's, like I said, getting more complicated, not less. There may not be a big issue, but some kind of issue. So we assert that while you can take steps to reduce the number, you can't eliminate all of them. There's just, over time, nothing's 100% effective. And while you have to be right 100% of the time, the people trying to breach your security only have to be right once. And again, sometimes it's something that isn't the hacker. It's just some failed hardware or something like that that was critical for you. So it is getting more complicated, not less. So we assert that education, planning, and preparation are the only things that are going to make a difference to reduce or recover from a security incident. And then we say kind of trust no one in this, which means you always want to verify your own security. You don't have to always understand it, but you have to understand it at a level where you can verify it with a third party to know that everything's working for your needs. Okay? There are some reasons we say you're going to have this security incident. You may be using vulnerable technology. Maybe you have something old that is vulnerable and hasn't been updated with security patches. Or maybe you have something new, but you haven't put the security patches in place. So you've got something vulnerable. Maybe you have this technology, but you're not following the best practices for installation and configuration. For instance, a lot of home small office routers have a default password set up and to get to the firewall router. And a lot of people never change that default password, where the best practice says go in and change it. If you're not having any kind of written policies around this, you're just going to kind of get what you get. We'll talk a little more about policies. If you're not educating people in your organization, again, likely because it's going to be without people knowing What to watch out for? They're likely to stumble into something. If you're not planning and preparing, if you're not monitoring and auditing, security is inconvenient. A lot of people will avoid security because it's an extra password, it's an extra click, it's something else, so they won't use it or they'll try and bypass it. But fundamentally, the biggest reason is that people are human. Computers would be really safe and secure if it weren't for the people using them. People are human, they make mistakes. I've made mistakes, I've clicked on the wrong thing, and I'm an expert. People will do something by accident, intentionally something, and that's why it's going to happen. So one of the things, and this is, I definitely applaud you all for participating today, and thank you for participating today. You are participating in what we call security awareness training. This is critical. Training and awareness for your computer users, training as part of onboarding new employees, newsletters and alerts about new security threats and scams, testing these out, testing your team and reporting on whether they're clicking on the things that they're not supposed to click on. Targeted education for critical roles. So if you're in an accounting role or somewhere where money flows back and forth, you'd be considered like a critical role. If you're a repeat offender, like you always click the fake attack, and then this ongoing education. You just never want to stop with it. We're actually rolling out a new product and service we call Sleep Well Aware that is a security awareness solution for businesses. So whether you do that or whether you roll your own or you send people to our webinars periodically or you use Google and read news about it, whatever, please stay aware. That's going to be your first step in staying safe. Right, this goes into that what you know and the blind spot thing. If you don't know something, you don't know it. If you know it, at least you can do something. There's always a few myths around security, and we've captured a few here. If you see yourself up here, just take the case that it's a myth. If you don't think you're going to have a security incident because you're too small, you've got someone that's got it all set and you don't know about it, that's that thing when we say I got a guy who handles this for me. It's okay that you have a third party helping you with security. In fact, I encourage it because it's complex and it's got to be done right. But it's when you're not seeing the reports, it's when you're not inspecting or telling them what your policies are, and you just assume that because you got a guy, it's handled. That's a huge blind spot for people. We run into that a lot where people got a guy and we go in and look and then we start to discover that there's a lot of holes that are there. And it's not because the guy was just a single person. People make mistakes. So it takes a team. It takes not abdication, but really partnership. This is a big component, and one of the big takeaways I want you guys to get is that security is a process. It's not a product. This may be one of the biggest takeaways from the presentation. If you think you're going to buy antivirus software as a product and you're safe, then you're going to be missing a whole lot. You're going to have a whole lot of blind spots. If you think that you bought a new firewall and now you're safe, or you've got backups and now you're safe, you don't have to worry about anything else, consider that's a big blind spot for you, because it is the process around security. It's the policies, it's the testing, it's the revisiting, it's the updating. There's more to it. And it doesn't have to be, it is complex, but it is something that is easily systematized. And when that's done, you're going to be way more secure than you would have been before, and you'll be able to recover when you need to. So again, some of this stuff is just already designed for you. You don't have to, kind of reinvent the wheel on this. So with NIST, this is your government at work, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or at NIST.gov. They created something called the Cyber Framework. You can go out and look for this. You can go read about it, get a lot of information around it. I'm just going to focus on the top 5 bubbles there, which is identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. You set up systems and processes and technology that will help you identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover, and it will put you way ahead of other businesses and way more secure posture to eliminate a lot of potential attacks as well as recover when there is. For some of you, compliance may be an issue. Okay, you want to look, are you subject to any government, industry, or industry rules and regulations? Are you contractually bound to anything? Have you got anything set up that you've either verbally or in written form told your customers or vendors how you're going to treat your data or their data that you're using? You want to look because everyone's going to have something different. So there's a few things that hit for people. PCI DSS, if you process credit cards, you need to be PCI DSS compliant. If you have any personally identifiable information you store, social security numbers, driver's license, date of birth, names, there's a higher standard expected for how you protect that. If you're in healthcare, HIPAA and high tech, if you're a public company, Sarbanes-Oxley, if you're an attorney, you've got state bar ethics rules. If you work with anybody in Europe, they have passed laws in Europe now called the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, I think it is, something like that. And they have fines set up that if you are not, all those new websites you've been going to, if you've noticed in the last couple of months, you go to a website and they all have this prompt up now saying about accepting cookies and GDPR and all. That's what this is part of. These are all people trying to comply with the guidelines. You may also have insurance for cybersecurity, and even with that cybersecurity insurance, there may be requirements you have. And I'm expecting more and more of these to come. I already saw one state, I think, was proposing that all ransomware or cyber attacks have to be publicly disclosed. So there's going to be more regulation coming, not judging whether it's good or bad per se, although it is nice to know if you are someone you work with has been hacked, you'd kind of like to know that. And if they did get hacked and we know how they got hacked, it might be nice to let other people know so they can protect themselves. Insurance. There is cyber liability insurance. There's cyber insurance. It can come by different names. You may have insurance, business insurance right now. You may have your homeowner's insurance right now, whatever that looks like. You want to verify whether it's going to protect you from these kinds of things. It used to be included in a lot, and now because the cost of dealing with a security breach can be so high, you're now seeing it carved out as a separate part of the policy, either a separate policy or a rider or something like that. So you really want to talk with your insurance people and verify that you've got insurance. Are they going to cover if you get hit with ransomware and you can't recover and you have to pay the attacker, are they going to cover the ransom? I don't know. That'd be something you want to find out. And if so, how much are they going to cover up to? Are they going to cover the cost of your business downtime, recovering systems? So they can be very expensive to deal with a breach. You also want to check the people you work with. What about your IT service providers, your vendors, your business partners? Are they insured as well? Do they have technology errors and omissions, cyber liability, all of this stuff? You want to check with them. You may want to get commitments from them that they've got this as well, so that if they have any of your data on their systems, like your attorney, that they're actually treating that the way you'd expect it to be treated according to your policy that you set up. So for some of you, this may be a blind spot. You may be working with somebody who you're counting on to be protected, and they're not. So credit cards and banking, we kind of put this up there just to give some sense of this because a lot of this boils around money. The current knowledge right now is avoid using your debit card. While we know that helps you keep your spending down from a budget perspective, it's more risky behavior. If the debit card gets breached, there's higher limits of what you can be responsible for. Credit cards do have better protections. If you're doing ACH withdrawals or transfers, we recommend setting up a separate account for that. So, a lot of your banks will let you set up a separate account or to another bank, and just put the money in there that you need. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. No problem setting up separate accounts. If one gets breached, you've got money in others. You always want to report these issues immediately to whoever it is. If it's a credit card company, if it's a bank, the government, whatever that might be, you really want to report it right away, not only to limit the exposure, but in some cases, if you go past a certain date, they will no longer be responsible. One of my business colleagues said that someone wrote a fraudulent check on their bank account for, I think, $18,000, and they had one of those checking accounts where they didn't necessarily have to check it like that. They had a lot of money in there, and they didn't notice it for, I think it was over 90 days. And by the time they noticed it, the bank said they were no longer liable to recover that money for you. So he was out that $18,000. You have a responsibility to check your statements. We recommend, check your accounts daily. Everyone's got apps for it and things like that. So not a bad place to check to see what's going on. And then wire transfers. If any of you are realtors or the CFO of a business, or anytime you're wiring money, there's a lot of scams going on around fraudulent wire transfer requests, or people intercepting your emails, and instead of saying, pay me a check for this $5,000, wire it here instead. So you always want to get verbal approval. Don't just take the email. Go talk to whoever it is and say, did you really send this to me? Do you really want this amount? And are these the correct wire transfer instructions? So when you go through, one of the things you want to do is kind of assess where you're at, or do this security audit. And this is part of that identify phase of the process. So you want to check, what policies do you have? Do you have any security policies or HR policies or anything like that? And there's a lot of templates out there. We can help you with that if you don't have anything, where they're pretty boilerplate. You put your name on them, and they really suit a lot of organizations. And now you've got something that you can use for yourself and for your team. Are there any compliance needs you have? Do you have a response plan? What are you going to do when you are breached? You actually can prepare for it ahead of time, just like you might prepare for a fire drill. You know where you're going to go and who you're going to meet and what you're going to do. You can do the same thing with IT security. Are you following best practices? Are there any blind spots? We could do vulnerability assessments, both internal and external. That's where we're using technology to probe your technology to see if anything's vulnerable. If you have a need, you can take it to another level called penetration testing, where you're actually paying someone to try and hack into the systems. And then you want to come out of this with a security report and what those results are and what the action items are for remediation. So after you go through all this, you can then have a plan that you can start to work to make a difference in your security posture. So when you write your policies around your CIA, these are things you want to think about. What are your business requirements? What are your expectations? For example, an expectation would be if your server is down, or if this system that you use is down, how quickly does it have to need to be back up and running before it impacts your business? And you want to be really clear about that. Some people, it might be, you know what, if my system was down, we could get away for like 2 or 3 business days, and after that it would be costing us money. For some people, it might be 2 or 3 hours. So you really want to look for yourself, what is that? What do you want your employees to be able to do? Do you have a budget around this? You want to think about how much you want to be able to invest in security. Who's going to manage and maintain? You can go through that. And then this enforcement. And again, some of our templates will just help you through asking these questions and even coming up with standard answers for these things that you can then tweak for your needs. So a firewall, this gets in a little bit geeky thing, but if you don't have a firewall, if you're not sure what a firewall is, talk to your IT provider and make sure you not only have a firewall which protects you and keeps your computer network safe from the internet, but you want to look at some of the advanced firewall features. Some of the basic firewalls do the basic job. Some of the advanced features are way smarter, and they can actually detect certain types of activity. They can stop attacks that are happening. They can provide reporting if you need it for compliance. They can scan for viruses as they come through. So there's a lot of advanced features out there, and some of them are really helpful and will absolutely protect you in certain cases. So you want to check to see if you've got something like that. We do talk about backing up your data, right? So the part of that CIA breach is if you actually lose data as part of your breach. And one way to avoid losing data is to back it up. So a lot of people have backup systems, and that's great. They back up their data once a week or once a night, and they've got a full copy of their data, and that's really the most critical. You can almost always reload systems and get those set up again. It may take some time, but as long as you can get your data back, there'll be some damage to what you're dealing with, but you should be able to fully recover. Disaster recovery is really a different concept, and it's really a distinct thing from backup, in that it really backs up the whole system. It may back up multiple times a day. We can actually do disaster recovery testing. Just like you do a fire drill, we can actually bring up your server or system on another computer, verify you can log into it, that all your things are there. You can be up and running in a few hours or less, depending on what you've got, sometimes minutes. You've got full off-site recovery. And then we have this concept of business continuity. What is, when you are hit, inevitably, with a security breach, how do you service your current customers? What's your plan? For some of you, you're going to go to pencil and paper. For some of you, who knows? So you want to understand what that's going to look so that you've got that plan set up ahead of time. And we can assist with that if necessary. This is just a little bit more about the advanced backup system, and that it becomes a true disaster recovery solution rather than just simply backups. Encrypting data and systems to make them unreadable to non-authorized parties. So this is where someone gets a hold of your data. They either steal it from your system and upload it somewhere, you lose your laptop, or you have a flash drive that you're walking around with that has your documents on it. Maybe you have backups that you keep at your office or you take home with you. A lot of times, with the right knowledge, someone, or even to easy knowledge, like let's say it's a flash drive and you carry some documents you're working on and you lose that. Someone could pick up that flash drive, plug it into a computer, and have access to all of those documents. So there are ways to secure the system in such a way that if your data gets out of your hands, it gets out of your control, that no one else can read it. And so if you have data that is being moved around physically, or if you have data of such concern that if it did get outside your system, it would be a big problem for you, you can look at what that would look like to encrypt it. There are some IT management basics, so whether you're an IT person or you manage your own system, there's some good things you want to do here that are easy kind of low-hanging fruit security things. You do want to make sure you've got good antivirus, anti-spyware, anti-spam. You want to make sure you're patching things. You want to watch what you're changing. So you want to kind of have controlled change. You don't want just everyone in your office being able to make changes to the system or make changes without considering the consequences or having a backup plan. Then you want to monitor and alert and know what's happening on your system. If you're running as a local administrator on your computer, or you don't know what that means and you're not sure, that's definitely one of those things you want to remove. You also want to start restricting access to files and folders. So for a lot of companies, they have like one big server that they all share and use, and they've got folders for HR and accounting and sales and all of that. And so, internally that may work okay from a security perspective. The salesperson may get those things, but you want to look at what they actually need, because if the salesperson gets hit with a virus and they only have access to the sales data, then only the sales data is what's at risk. You've reduced the scope of your threat, but they can no longer access that financial information because they don't have rights to it. Make sure people are using complex passwords. The length of password is very important. You want to have very long passwords, even if you're padding it with a pattern of some sort. Make sure you have hardware warranties, good backups, and really get those security policies and response plans dialed in. There's other technologies that we want you to look at. One we're going to do a bit of a deep dive into is the two-factor or multi-factor authentication. But there's other things out there that'll make a difference for you. Two-factor, if you aren't using this, turn it on anywhere you can. This is where, let's say you log into your account somewhere, and then before it takes you all the way in, it says enter a code that we just sent to your phone. And then you look at your phone, and there's a 6-digit code or something. You key that 6-digit code in. Prior to having two-factor authentication, anyone that has an ID and password could log into the system, whether it was you whether it was someone in Russia or China or any other country or any hacker in the United States, whatever that is that's trying to get in, if they had your password, if your password was breached, you were susceptible. Now they have to have your phone. So everyone that tries to log in around the world, they're going to log in and say, enter the security code, and they're going to, oh, I don't have your phone. So they're not going to have that information. Now there are some security holes around that, and I don't want to get too deep into that. But for most of you, for most situations, it's extraordinarily great security. Or whether you have those authenticator apps like Microsoft or Google, or one of those apps that brings up an ever-changing 6-digit code to plug in, you definitely want to use that. And so you want to check all of your systems. It's very common now for that almost every system has some kind of two-factor or multi-factor authentication going into it. And a lot of you have a real-world example of this, right? You use your ATM card to go get money out of the cash machine. Now, when you think about it, your password's really terrible. It's somewhere between 0000 and 9999. It's one of known 10,000 combinations. So it's really a bad password when you think about passwords. But what makes it secure is you also have to have the card. And we've been trained from the moment we got our card to really protect that, like we protect our wallet and our keys and things like that. So you want to, sorry about that phone ringing there if you guys heard that. You want to treat whatever that is, your phone, your credit cards, all of that, just like you treat all of this, and that is a whole level of security that people are very familiar with. There's other blind spots. How many of you have a conference room with a nice big TV on the wall that you can browse the internet with and bring up videos, watch Netflix, whatever, those smart TVs? Those are basically a big computer hanging on your wall. And just like any computer, there's security updates that need to be run, there's patches. Sometimes they're vulnerable because they're not patched. So all of these new Internet of Things devices, the Alexas, the Google Home, the thermostats, the locks, like all of these things are little computers and they connect to the internet, and there's things that they're being taken over. So you really want to look at where you might have some blind spots around that and either make sure they're updated or replace them with something that's working, or at least put them on a separate network, like a different guest network or something, so that if they are attacked, they can't attack your critical computers. If you're allowing people in your organization to use their own phones, tablets, home computers, those are what we call untrusted. If you're not managing those and making sure that they're running standards that you expect of all your office computers, then you've got a potential blind spot there. So there's a lot of things on here. Those social engineering attacks in the second column, those are really big. One of the other interesting ones is these e-cigarettes. So those are the electronic cigarettes or the vaping things that people do, and those are actually battery powered, and so they need to get charged up periodically. So they actually have a USB adapter on them, and so people will plug them into their computer to charge them while they're at work or at home. And one was actually found to have a virus on it. So someone actually plugged it in their computer and it infected their computer. I put QR codes on there. Those people, when you go to trade shows or you see posters or there's things and there's a QR code where you're supposed to scan it with your phone and then it takes you somewhere else, to a web page or something like that to bring up some information or to log in for something. Super handy, right? There was a attack going on where someone printed out QR codes that were taking you other places, and they would just go to the posters and then put their label over the QR code with their QR code that took you somewhere else. Just got to be vigilant. We do talk about internal threats, and really why we talk about the hackers and the Russians and the Chinese and the North Koreans and all that kind of stuff, what we're really talking about in most cases when you look at the statistics is something internal. Either intentionally or unintentionally, someone inside your office is going to be the one that's going to cause the breach. They clicked on the wrong thing, or they try to steal data from you or something like that. So there are systems out there. We have a that'll detect and respond to those kinds of things. But this is why security awareness training is critical, not only for you, but for everyone on your team. And if you're really concerned about it, looking at solutions, technology solutions that work hand in hand with the training to help detect any internal threat breaches. Social engineering. They are trying to take advantage of you because you're human. They're trying to take your human nature and use it against you. It's a con game. They pretend to be someone you trust. They're using some fear or urgency to get you to do something that's going to breach your security. I know at least 2 companies in the last 2 months, there was a scam going around that one of your employees would get an email saying it was coming from the business owner or the president saying, hey, I need you to help me with something really special and I'm counting on you. I want to give out gift cards because everyone's been working so hard, but I don't want people to know about it. So will you please use your own personal credit card, go to this website and buy $1,500 or $2,000 worth of gift cards and then send them to me so that I can give them out as holiday gifts. Right? It's just so, oh, look, my boss is coming to me. I'm the special one. I get to be on the inside of the secret and be a part of this, and everyone's going to be so happy. And then they give them their personal credit card. We know one that lost $2,000 and one that lost $1,500. Or the ones calling, we still get it, still happens. Someone calls up and says, I know I shouldn't have done this. I got a call from Microsoft telling me I had a virus on my computer, and I went to the website they told me to, and now I'm infected, and da-da-da-da, right? It just takes 1 week moment. I've done it too. It happens. So you just have to really be careful about it. So what they're doing in part of the social engineering is something called phishing. That's where they're sending you the, hey, here's that package you ordered, that iPad you ordered from Amazon, and it's on its way. And you click, I didn't order an iPad from Amazon. You click, and then suddenly it takes you to a website or installs some software, and now you've been phished. You've been breached. Or they send you the note, like I said, saying, hey, I need you to log into your Google account. Here's a document for you. And then you get brought up with your Google or Office 365 login screen, and it looks legitimate. And so you type in your Google ID and password, or your Office 365 ID and password, or your banking ID and password, and then suddenly some other party has that. So phishing is a real problem. And they look so real. These are ones from a couple years ago, and they still look really real today. Amazon or IRS. You can see it looks real, but there's little telltale signs. So if you look at, like here, this Westpac ID, it's like, no, that's not really a Westpac email address. Or the grammar or punctuation is odd. Sometimes these are people that English is not their native language. And so they're using translators or something like that, and they'll miss certain things. Or if you hover over a link, like this link on the lower right here for Apple, and it says, oh, if I click here, that's taking me to store.apple.com, but if you hover the mouse and don't click on it, it's actually taking you to some website with a .de domain, which is a German domain, /apple/apple.htm. So, it looks like maybe it's real. If you're not sure, most of these companies are never going to request your passwords or your IDs or telling you these things. But if you're unsure, ask your IT provider before you click, or call the company and say, IRS, did you actually send this to me? Or go to the website directly. If you get something from your bank and you're not sure, close that email and go directly to your banking website from your browser, and then log in and see what you've got there. But again, all it takes is 1 week moment. These are some sign-ins for Office 365 and Google Drive. I mean, they look real. They really look great. And all it takes is someone missing that it says Microsoft Office 365 team, but it's going to CYH 11241. These are actually ones that came to me, I think, some of these. I've been copying and pasting some of the ones I get. Or this one, someone, again, some German site that got hacked. You're going to log into it with your Office 365, and you give them your email address and your password. So they now have that. They can now log into your account unless you have got two-factor authentication turned on. Then when they try and log in, they're going to get that prompted for that two-factor, and they won't be able to get in. So you might think you're safe, which is great, and you probably are for this site. However, if you've reused that password on another website, maybe you use that for your Amazon site using the same password, they now have that password, and they will try that password on other popular services. So you never want to use your same password across websites. There's a couple more examples of these websites that look like, here's a Chase site. Look, prime rate has fallen. Click here for branches. But if you look up in the address line, it says chaseonline.hut2.ru. RU is a Russian domain. So you just want to check and make sure you're really going where you think you're going. So you want to hover over those links. You want to look at the email addresses. You want to just check in with yourself. Were you expecting this? Does it make sense? Does it involve money? And then just give yourself a moment. Count to 10 before you click or something like that. And just kind of build in that muscle of delayed response to just really give yourself a chance to verify that everything looks okay. And then spread the word. In your office, if you get hit, you want to let other people know you got hit. You got to discover how you're going to do that for your business, but don't forward it on to other people. Tell other people in your office, because a lot of times with those phishing attacks, they're not just trying to phish you, they're trying to phish everyone at your organization. So they may also have gotten it, and they haven't taken that 5-second break time before they click, and they may have already done it and weren't aware of it, or they're about to click, and that's when you came over and said, don't click on this phishing email. Let your IT provider know. So we talk a little about one of the things that's really popular in a kind of a perverse way is ransomware. So that is where someone doesn't really care about your data, because that's one of those myths, right? I'm too small to be a target. Why would anybody care about me? They don't really care about your data in some cases, but they know you care about your data. And so if you get hit with ransomware, what happens is you get this malware on your computer, a virus of some sort, and it's going to go out and it's going to look at your drives where you store all your files and your accounting data, and it runs it through a mathematical algorithm that encrypts the data such that no force on earth can get your data back unless you have the right key. One of our clients that got hit, they had great backups. We didn't have to pay the ransom, but we still want to check into it. $20,000 was the ransom. And that's just the ransom. That doesn't include remediation costs, meaning to get the computers back up and running. Because once they're on your computer, you can never really trust it again. So our recommendation is always to reload your computer from a backup or from scratch. And when you pay that Bitcoin, when you pay those ransoms, you're just hoping that they're going to be ethical and organized around it. So this is why you always want to have backups. You always want to keep them separate from your other system. You want to make sure your backups are physically not connected to your network in a way that ransomware can hit those backups, because that's also something that can happen. Not only do your servers get hit, but your backups get hit. Somebody is saying that they're the ones that get email forwarded to them, which is great, because this person is one of the IT people or the IT power users there too. So the idea of that's good. That's a good practice that they're doing. So ransomware is a big deal. We actually maintain an account with a crypto bank, and we keep cash in there. We keep $20,000 in cash on hand at the crypto bank, so that if someone actually gets hit, we can respond very quickly. But no one likes to pay that ransom because it's just money out the door, and you just have to hope that they're actually going to pay. In one case, we had it, and they actually paid the ransom, and they got their data back. Because like I said, it's a business. They want to have good customer service. They want to fulfill on their promises to their, air quote customers. Because if they're always known for not giving you your data back, no one will pay the ransom. Some of them have websites with frequently asked questions. They have customer service areas. How do I get Bitcoin? How do I apply the key? It's remarkably disgusting, but it is what's going on in the world. Hacked hardware is something to worry about. That's the picture of those vaping pens on the lower right here. If I dropped one of these in your parking lot, or maybe had a standard flash key, flash memory thing, and I wrote on there, wedding photos or family trip 2018, someone's going to pick it up. Someone's probably going to plug it in. Once you plug this in, your system can be taken over. They can use this to install keyloggers and viruses and other malware onto your system. So this is, again, part of that education. What's your policy? If someone finds a flash drive in your parking lot, what is your expectation? If someone's buying one of these vaping pens, and they're just, a lot of them are made in all over the world, are you allowing people to plug those into your network or not? Part of that policy and education. Going back to those fake phone calls, Microsoft's not going to call you and say you have a virus. No one's going to call you. No legitimate company is going to call you and say, hey, I'm calling from Microsoft, or I'm calling from the IRS, give me your ID and password, or any of that stuff. So here's some basic training. Again, these are dense slides, so you will get the copy of these, but just report anything suspicious right away. Use great long passwords. Don't reuse passwords across sites. Don't write them down, which may seem obvious. But on the other hand, it's not such a problem to write them down. And there's some cases I have a password for certain things that I actually have written down, but I don't have the complete password written down. I've got the main password that's kind of complex, and then I've got this kind of pin or this extra phrase series of sequence of things that I have memorized, and that gets added to the password. And when you write them down, just treat it like you treat your wallet or your purse or your ATM card. Keep it secure. Use two-factor authentication where it's available. Watch out for those social engineering attacks, and just don't install anything. Don't install software that you don't need. Uninstall software that you don't need. If you've got some software on your system that you don't use anymore, get rid of it. It's possible that could be part of the attack at some point, if there's some piece of software that's no longer secure. Always keep things updated. Keep up-to-date anti-spam that also looks for malware. Up-to-date antivirus software. Try and keep your professional and personal world separate. If you have a laptop that you use for work, don't let your kid use it to load games and things like that. Don't start using it for stuff that isn't work related. Try and keep them separate if you can. Computers are inexpensive for most of the time, then you can get a basic separate computer. Definitely don't run as local administrator. When you're a local administrator on your computer, that basically means you are God on your computer. You can do anything. And when you can do anything on the computer, so can the malware or virus you got. Microsoft did a study at one point, because Microsoft is always coming out with updates to Windows, at least on a monthly basis, sometimes more. And one of their studies at one point said that 80% of the security holes that are in their system, the end user would be not impacted if they weren't running as an administrator. And then just keep lots of backups, both on-site and off-site. Same for your home stuff. Just because you back up your files to the cloud does not mean that that's the only backup you might want to have. It's a good start, but sometimes those cloud can get breached. Sometimes they have different kinds of service level agreements on how much data they're going to hold for you and things like that. So multiple backups is always great. So now we get into action here. So face the facts, right? Hopefully you've all gone through this education now, and you're just clear that security is complex, security problems are real, and that it's very likely that you're going to be in a situation where you want to get hit, or you not want to get hit, that you might get hit or will get hit over time. Okay? So you want to get that security audit complete. Go through it yourself, bring in your IT provider, um, bring in security experts or your IT provider that is a security expert. We offer that service as well. You want to get that audit done just so you know where your blind spots are, and you get a plan. Then you want to update your policies. You want to implement technology to enforce your policies. You want to make sure you've got your response plan, provide that ongoing security awareness training. This is not a one and done thing. It's great you came today and I appreciate it. You should attend all our security webinars. You should have your own security education internally or using our Sleep Well Aware product, something like that that actually has people always aware of what's happening. Because just like anything, sometimes you have to hear something 5 or 10 times before it really gets into your brain. Get your insurance needs settled. Do that now. Call your insurance agent and start getting that, because in the end, if you can't recover, or you can recover, but the recovery is going to cost $10, $20, $30, $40,000, you're going to want insurance for that. And then once or twice a year, go back to step one and repeat regularly. Like the shampoo says, rinse and repeat. Here's a few websites that you might be interested in. Have I Been Pwned? Pwned. Pwned is like hacker geek speak for that they own your computers. You can actually go in there and type your email address in, and it will tell you if your email address has been exposed on any of these breaches that have been made available. Right? All these breaches that are in the news, there's somebody that maintains a database of all the breached information. And so you may find that, if you Google mine, if you have I been pwned and you enter my email address, you're going to see that mine has been breached a couple of times. It was on an Adobe site that Adobe got attacked. It was some couple of marketing sites that I didn't even know I was on because someone's just aggregating my data. And so you can go back in and change that password for that system. Or if you reuse that password, just get that someone else has it. This is a public site. A couple of these other things get a little geeky. We're not going to go into them too much today, but the one point of this I want to make is that you don't have to be extraordinarily knowledgeable anymore to hack and take over somebody. It's so automated now. If you said, you know what, I don't like my employer, I got some kind of spiteful something going on, and I want to attack them, there's websites you can go where you can pay them in Bitcoin and they'll attack your boss for you. It's horrifying, but it is that easy. So again, security, it's only as good as its weakest link. So coming out of today, what are you discovering are your weak links, and what are you going to do about it? So hopefully most of you are thumbs up now. You got some knowledge, you got some actions you can take, you can start formulating a plan. I thank you for your time. We're going to open up to Q&A right now, and you can go ahead and chat any of those Q&A messages in the chat window of your GoToMeeting if there's anything. Otherwise, if you have any further questions on this or you want help with your security, let me know. And again, thank you for your time. Thank you for being the kind of person that's taking security seriously and want to get more involved and know what it's about. And now just go forth and spread the word. Okay, any questions? You're welcome. I got a few thank yous coming in. Thank you. You're welcome. Any questions about the technologies, the process? Remember, you will get a copy of the slides. We will get you the slides. There's also going to be that survey. So any feedback on the quality of the presentation, me as a presenter, or the content, we love to hear it so we can make a difference. So somebody's saying they have kind of a system where their passcode is some kind of a base of some sort, and then they match part of their password to the website they're visiting. So, which is great in the sense that that is helping you create unique passwords among sites. However, you want to really check in, how guessable is the system if someone catches one of the passwords? like I said, if you go to that have I been pwned and they see that your password is available and they go look and your password is some kind of a system, like you can see part of the website name is in there, there's some sequence of characters, they may be able to guess what your system is for password creation and then use it on other stuff. Or if you happen to get phished, you had that weak moment, you typed in the ID and password into your Office 365, and maybe you got two-factor authentication turned on, which is great, so you're protected from that, but they now have that password. And so if you're using a system that can be reverse engineered easily, you just want to check in and make sure it's not something like that. But I really acknowledge you for at least trying to come up with unique passwords. That's awesome. That's really a great security step. Any other questions? Got just about a minute left. Yeah, someone reminded me, this is one of the slides, I think, but I didn't mention it. A password manager is really a great thing to have. If you don't have a password manager, like LastPass or 1Password or some of these other ones, or Dashlane, those are going to help you create secure passwords. It'll store them for you securely, and it'll help you enter them into websites. Oh, so whoever said, Tim, thank you for reminding me of that. It's in the slide, but I didn't speak to it directly. Highly recommend password managers. And those will help you create random passwords and secure passwords that you won't reuse across sites. Because most people can't be relied on to create their own random password. Not because they just can't, but just kind of a human thing. Computers are better at it. Someone's asking why those password managers are safe. They are safe by design because, now again, everything is as safe as we know it is currently now. So I just want to put that out there. In the future, you may find some password manager had some security hole, something that was breached. However, the good ones will actually explain how their security works. They'll talk about how it's done, what's there, and then security experts and researchers can evaluate that and look to see whether they're doing it securely. So I use LastPass, and I have confidence that LastPass is secure, not only because I can get at the information, but LastPass as a company, they only get an encrypted form of my password database. They never get the unencrypted form. So it's never stored out in the world in an unencrypted method, and so we encourage people to use those for sure. I use them, my family use them, my employees use them, and I even put other stuff in there like, driver's license numbers and other codes and information. Someone's asking what password manager I use. It's called LastPass. LastPass is really nice. It's easy. They've got plugins for your web browsers. They've got apps for your phones and tablets. You can share passwords with other LastPass users that you create in terms of your family. It helps enter the passwords for you. Great system. LastPass, yep. Yep, spelled correctly. LastPass. All right, we're 2 minutes over. For those of you that stuck around, thank you. Next time I'll leave a little bit more room for Q&A for you. Any other follow-up questions, you've got my phone number, you've got my email address. We also post security alerts on social media, so if you want to follow us or like us on any of those sites, that's great. If you have any follow-up from the presentation or questions, give us a call. Have an awesome, safe day and a safe year, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye, everyone.